we have this case with Jack Smith, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with this case here at all. This case, obviously, this is the case that is tied to January 6th. This is the case that is tied to them basically saying that Trump led an insurrection on January 6th. And that's what they're trying to prove, right? And there's been this fight over presidential immunity, right? There's been this fight for the last several months in the courts, and Trump saying he has presidential immunity for decisions he makes as president, as most presidents do, right? Like, for example, Obama drone striking Americans on foreign soil, right? He wasn't brought up and charged with killing American soldiers, or excuse me, American citizens in those drone attacks, or Biden ordering a drone attack that killed an innocent family of children and a mom and dad, thinking that he killed terrorists, and he didn't, right? He killed a family, right? And so these are immunities that presidents have, right? And so what the courts thus far have said in this case about presidential immunity, they're basically stating that the president does not have presidential immunity for decisions he makes as president. It will be impossible to be a president and to be able to effectively govern a nation without presidential immunity. Why? Because then every decision that you've made as president, whether it led to somebody's death or led to some type of disaster or whatever, now you can be charged with a crime. It's basically the standard they're setting, right? So President Trump has been fighting this presidential immunity that presidents have, and thus far the courts have said no, the president doesn't have presidential immunity. And so what he's now doing is appealing to the Supreme Court. We knew it was going to get appealed to the Supreme Court. We knew it was going to go to the SCOTUS, right? That was going to happen, and rightfully so. It needed to go to SCOTUS. However, what we are seeing here, of course, if the Supreme Court, for whatever reason, rules that President Trump does not have presidential immunity, that means no president has presidential immunity. You cannot just let it stick to one individual president, right? So that would open up the floodgates to go after all former presidents then and charge them with crimes. And I would be a willing participant in encouraging red state DAs to go, or AGs, to go after former presidents, people like Barack Hussein Obama, Bill Clinton, even Jimmy Carter. Did Jimmy Carter die, or was it his wife that died? I think it was his wife that died. Anyway, going after these individuals, right? Going after Bush, right? This is what we are seeing. So President Trump, if anything, other presidents should be saying, yeah, we got presidential immunity, right? But instead, they're so rotted with TDS, they're so rotted with Trump derangement syndrome that they're willing to throw everything aside in order to get Trump. So that's what we're seeing here. So we see this fight for presidential immunity, right? Now it's going now. It's going now to the Supreme Court. So let's take a look at this story. Hey, might be wrong. Thanks for joining me tonight. Right. So the Trump team's asking the Supreme Court to pause the immunity ruling in Jack Smith's January 6th case. Let's take a look at this because it's quite important to look at it. President Trump on Monday, today, asked the U.S. Supreme Court to pause the immunity ruling in Jack Smith's January 6th case in D.C. Last week, a federal appeals court stacked with the Biden judges denied Trump's immunity in the special counsel Jack Smith's January 6th D.C. case. The three-judge panel in the D.C. court appellate ruled on Trump's immunity claims. Florence Pan, Biden appointee, Michelle Child, Biden appointee, and Karen Henderson, George W. Bush appointee. Interesting that they're all women, by the way. We have a balance. We have balance. Former President Trump's asserted interest in this executive immunity against the vital public interests that favor allowing this prosecution to proceed, the three-panel judge wrote, right? we conclude that the concerns of the public policy, especially as illuminated by our history and the structure of our government, compelled the rejection of the claim of immunity in the case they wrote. Trump's lawyers argued that Trump is immune from federal prosecution for alleged crimes committed while served as U.S. president. In 234 years of American history, no president has ever faced criminal prosecution for his official acts until 19 days ago. No court has ever addressed whether immunity from such prosecution exists, Trump's lawyers wrote in the last month's filing. According to CBS News, to this day, no appellate court has addressed it. The question stands among the most complex and momentous issues that this court will be called to decide. On January 9th, a three-panel judge panel heard oral arguments and appeared skeptical of Trump's immunity claims. One judge, a Biden appointee, asked the attorney, John Sawyer, if Trump would be subject to a criminal prosecution if he ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate his political rivals. Something kind of what the Biden administration is doing. In the meantime, the March 4th trial date for Jack Smith case has been postponed. Earlier this month, Judge Tanya Chacon, the Obama appointee who's overseeing Jack Smith's January 6th case against Trump in the D.C., formally postponed the trial. The judge, in order to postpone the trial, has told prospective jurors who were asked to fill out a questionnaire not to appear in court. Meanwhile, in Florida, Judge Cannon, the Trump appointee who is overseeing Jack Smith's classified documents case in Florida, will hold a March 1st hearing to get the status appeal on the special counsel to the case. Cannon suggested the May 20th trial date for the classified document case will be postponed if the special counsel could not resolve the Trump immunity agreement in a timely manner. President Trump last week argued a U.S. president should have full immunity in order to properly function. A president of the United States must have full immunity in order to properly function and do what has to be done for the good of our country. A nation-destroying ruling like this cannot be allowed to stand. If not overturned, as it should be, this decision would terribly injure not only the presidency, but the life, breath, and success of our country. A president will be afraid to act for fear of the opposite party's vicious retribution after leaving office. I know from personal experience because I'm going through it right now. It will become a political weapon used for election interference. Even our elections will be corrupted and under siege. So bad and so dangerous for our nation. Save presidential immunity, Trump said on Truth Social. And he's correct. He's correct in this assessment.